And I think as parents, as leaders, as mentors, the better we practice ourselves, the better we can make the game better for everybody else in life.
Well, I should say we have a beef to squash to start, which is that Doug Christie was my favorite basketball player growing up. I was a huge Sacramento Kings fan, and you ripped my heart out.
Doug, I love Doug, man. You know, Doug and I, that's actually my guy. I'll tell you a funny story.
Really?
With Doug. So I was in Orlando Magic. Doug was at Sacramento. And I asked for a trade from Orlando because it's my first time ever. I was the captain of every single team I was on. Every team. It didn't matter. Even when I went to Sacramento, Chris Webber and them had me become the captain. Because I had more of a voice, so to speak. And Doug, they traded me for Doug. Doug went to Orlando. I went to Sacramento. I love Sac. It was the best. But I needed a new challenge in life because Sacramento was always known for going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And for
Not
me,
anymore.
I wanted to. Yeah, I know. You know, the last time we had went was when I was there. So
I know this very well.
Yeah. So it was tough. So what happened was the coach that we had in Orlando, I mean, the guy was a buffoon. It was just terrible. And it speaks a lot about the ego's the enemy, right? Or I always say purpose before ego. You know, they had Tracy McGrady, all these guys in Orlando the year before. Now, Houston Rockets, when I was at Houston Rockets, we lost to the Los Angeles Lakers. You know, when they had Gary Payton and Kobe Bryant and Rick Fox and Shaquille O'Neal and Karl Malone, they had a massive squad. We played them 9 times that year, 9. We lost 5-4. The record was 5-4. So we were even the whole year.
Yeah.
Jeff Van Gundy trades us to Orlando. Orlando, meanwhile, record was 18 and whatever, 100. Okay. So myself, Grant Hill, Steve Francis, Dwight Howard's rookie year, all of us, we're starting off in Orlando's now. We're like one of the top teams because you brought 3 starters from the Houston Rockets who was experienced onto a team that was losing. Tracy McGrady went to Houston Rockets. So the coach, I guess he thought when we started to get success, it was him. It was really guys who knew how to play together.
Sure.
Right? Because we were together. So, you know, he was telling Steve and I he was going to cut our minutes and this, that, whatever. And Steve and I were like, we were in our 6th year. Like we're going into our prime.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait, no, coach, that's not fair. Like it's my contract year. I'm top 3 in the league in 3-point field goal percentage. We're gigging. This doesn't make sense. Whatever. So I said, instead of fighting or whatever it is, I said, listen, I went to the GM who was a native of Philadelphia. I said, listen, I don't think this is going to mesh well. I said, of course I want to stay with my guys, but, you know, he's talking about cutting minutes and it's just like not a good thing. I said, I'm used to playing 40 minutes a game, you know, because I was top in the league in minutes for 6 or 7 straight years. So I said, can you get me out of here? And he's like, you know, if that's what you want to do, sure. So he gave me 5 options. And he says, listen, I don't want you to go to a team that's doing bad. I said, what about Sacramento? I was like, oh, I would love to go to Sacramento. So he made the trade, Doug Christie. And then Doug goes to Orlando. He calls me up after like 2 weeks. He's like, I hate you. He's like, it's terrible over here. I'm like, Doug, bro, I told you. It's unbelievable. And we went from first place in Orlando to all the way down, not making the playoffs.
Now I have such a traumatic relationship with the NBA because I grew up a kid in Sacramento. They were bad when I was really little. And then basically my entire childhood from like when I could really pay attention to the game to when I left for college, they were not just good. They were like the greatest show in the NBA.
On earth. Yes.
It was incredible. And then, like, literally, they've just never been good a single year ever since then. And it's like this high watermark that that haunts me to this day.
Yeah, if Vlade Divac would have just grab the rebound with two hands instead of tipping it out, the dynasty of the Lakers would not have been. I'm telling you.
Isn't it crazy how just one moment can change the trajectory of so much?
So that's why I love you, because the way you think is actually how I think. And in my life, there's so many different things that's happened in my life that it was just, it's like you can switch your brain in a millisecond and it'll change the trajectory of your journey.
Yeah.
Right? And that same thing, it's like Vladdy. If you go up with two hands and you grab that ball, you guys win the series, basically. Right? Like totally. You have a better chance.
Yeah. It changes everything.
Now, another one goes on with Karl Malone. If Karl Malone, when you get the ball in the post, after Michael Jordan goes past you, right? They pass the ball in the post and you cut through. If he checks off first to see that Michael, he's one of the leading steals ever in the history. If he checks off first, Michael doesn't steal the ball and hit the game winner. If he shoots and makes his free throws, the Chicago Bulls don't win two in a row. Like, it's just these little things.
Well, you want to talk about Philadelphia in a moment. It's, Ben Simmons goes for that dunk or that layup instead of passing it. Maybe yes. his entire life, multiple franchises, they all go in a very different direction.
Yes, so true. So true, man. It's just, I'm telling you, it's the craziest. And I literally been through that, not getting a rebound, not doing this, not doing that. And then it changes. It just like, woo, it gives you the other side of it. And that side hurts for a second until you really pay attention.
Well, a similar moment to that, I sort of want to start I don't want to say at the end, but kind of in the middle of your story, which is, and I talked to Chris Bosh about a very similar moment in his life, although he also had one of those moments, you get the rebound, you don't get the rebound, things goes very differently. But the moment when you learn that you can't play anymore, walk me through that.
Oh, that was tough, man. So what happened was I was very comfortable in LA. It's my third year with the Clippers. I worked out really hard that summer, okay, because we went to the playoffs my first year with the Clippers, and it was massive, right? Not going to the playoffs for 14 plus odd years, and now you get to LA and you're in the playoffs and you're this big hero, right? You feel a part of something, right? Sacramento was used to winning from my era, right? Houston Rockets was used to winning from my era, but then you go to a Clippers organization where it's like it's just not done right at the time.
Yeah.
So when we make the playoffs that first year, life was just amazing. And then the second year, all of us injuries for every single one of us. So I told myself that third year, listen, get in shape, get yourself right. And then Baron Davis comes on. And, we had a new unit. Elton Brand wasn't there now, right? So we had a newer Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, kind of meshing the older with the younger. Me saying to myself, in the back of my mind, Ryan, you know what? I'm going to finish out my career here. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to finish out here, get into business, do this, do that. So my mind is 100% in playing ball, but it's not truly committed to the longevity of the game as much as I thought it was. Okay, so we're playing in the beginning of the preseason. Everybody's doing fine. We're finding each other out. We go to play OKC. So we're playing Kevin Durant and those guys. I have 27 points. I had 7 steals. I killed this game. November 18th it was. Never played a game since then in the NBA ever. After that, we played Philadelphia. We go to Philadelphia. There's a trade. And so now in this trade, I'm a part of the trade. A couple of guys, Al Harrington, Tim Thomas, part of the trade. Tim Thomas was on my team at the time. So I didn't want to go to New York. I didn't want to play for New York. because it's cold. I was used to the West Coast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was that for me. So I was contemplating, should I just, go and just like sit down? Like, that's just it. Like, I just want to sit down. I want to play for New York. And it wasn't I love New York. I love going to New York. I love shopping in New York. A lot of my friends in New York. But if I'm going to spend 10 months somewhere, I'd rather do it on the West Coast where it's the weather and the ocean and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just used to that. So be careful what you wish for. So when they told me, we go to these doctors in New York. I think the doctor was the New York doctor was Lisa Hamilton, and she takes me to all these different procedures. And listen, when I first played in the NBA, first started in the NBA, there was an issue, supposed issue with my heart or whatever it was, misdiagnosis, the whole thing. The doctor that I had the very first time, he said, "I believe in you. I'm going to monitor you." And from then on, sky's the limit. Boom, I just blew up from there. Fast forward to going to New York, they made this a big deal. They made it a really big deal. So when they made it a big deal, I was exhausted mentally. So they went from New York to all these different EKGs and CAT scans and this and that and all these different things. And, we go up to Boston, we go to Tufts, and then like now this doctor at Tufts is telling, he's telling me, he's like, "Oh, listen, he's actually scaring me. Oh, if you play, you can drop dead and you can do this, you can do that." And I'm like, wow. I'm like, well, maybe, I'm in my, 10th, 11th year. Maybe it's time for me to like sit down, I guess.
Yeah.
He's tricking my brain. And I'm usually the person that became successful. I was really strong-willed, individual. So again, like I said before, right? I want to play, but then like I'm on that kind of like, should I just like chill out from basketball kind of thing? Okay. He says, "Well, I don't think you should play." So the doctor, Lisa Hamilton, New York doctor, they all assess the whole thing. And then they say, "You know what? I don't think you should play basketball anymore." So I'm like, wait, what? It took me time to like process what they were saying. Meanwhile, I still didn't process it.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Well, listen, we'll get you an office job here. You'll work for the NBA. You'll do this, you'll do that, and blah, blah, blah." I'm like, you know what? First of all, mentally, I'm not in that space. I don't want to be here at all.
Yeah.
I want to go back home, right, to LA. So I get back to LA. I'm literally walking down. I think I'm at Ralph Lauren's store, and my first time ever, Ryan, I had a panic attack. My heart was beating. I'm sweating. My palms, my hands, because I came to the realization that I cannot play the game I love anymore.
Oh, it just hit you as delayed.
It was delayed. It was delayed because I was always, I don't want to say good at it, but I was always suppressing. It's okay, let it go. Come on, next step, those type of things. And in basketball, in sports, you have to do it. Because as you know, if Mike Bibby turns the ball over on offense, you have to get back on defense. Sure. You can't dwell because then they'll make 2 points. So your brain gets tricked in like saying when bad things happen, let it go. Next play.
Sure.
Right? A lot of guys don't really understand that part. So when you're dealing with real life issues, it's like, yo, come on, you're all right. Like, let it go. Grandmom died. You okay? Sister died. Hey, listen, you got to keep living. It's like, it's those things, right? So you condition your brain into that. So I was really shocked. I cried. I for a few, maybe 6 weeks, I was down. I was just in the house, just thinking like, wow, I cannot believe I did this. I can't believe I manifested this into really, right? Like and I kind of blame myself because the power of thinking, like I'm sitting there like, I just brought this into existence. This is crazy. Why would you do that to yourself? Saying that.
Right.
So, I came out of it. I said, you know what? I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start doing that. And I started walking, I started running, I started playing, I started doing more things. Now, they're telling me don't do none of this.
Yeah.
Because something can happen to you. Again, I went back to what made me successful.
Sure.
my mind, right? I go back to the same doctor that told me I couldn't play, which was in Minnesota. And he says to me, the first time I went was with my best friend, Alvin Williams, who played for Toronto Raptors. And, Alvin was scared also because of how the doc explained things. And, I go back to him a year later, and the doc says, you know what? They took the test. He says, you know what? Listen, whatever you're doing, you keep doing. You look really good. And I said to myself, Ryan, wow, that's the mind. Because he don't know I was working out. He don't know I was playing ball. He don't know I was shooting, jogging up hills, lifting. He don't know I was doing these things. Now, mind you, they told me don't do nothing no more. No, nothing active. Not one thing. So I'm sitting to myself like, the mind is so powerful. So then I got back into working out. And but for a period of time, about 6, 7 weeks, I want to say 6 weeks, I was down, man. I felt really like defeated. And I was blaming myself for manifesting those things.
Well, it's interesting that you raise a good point, which is that I think when you're really busy, when you're always going, you don't have to process stuff. You don't have to think about it. And not just, hey, you got to get back on defense in the middle of a game, but then there's a game tomorrow, there's a game the day after tomorrow. It's sort of like you don't have to process your emotions, you don't have to process your issues. You're just always caught up in the next thing. But regular life isn't like that.
Right. So I mean, again, regular life is nothing like that. But again, when is it ever regular for you? You've been doing it since you were 12, and then, you know what I mean? Like you said before, if I have a game on Monday, and I have a game on Wednesday, and I have a game on Thursday, and then I got a game on Saturday, like when you have time to feel bad, you don't.
You're just in it all the time.
They're paying you to perform.
Yeah.
Right? Like Ryan Holiday's a very spiritual, uplifting, kind of giving you this boost and everything. It's like, if you got to go speak in front of thousands of people, they don't really care if you're sad.
Right. Sure.
They care about the information you give them. Do you know what I mean?
The show must go on.
The show has to go on. How are you? They don't, like, how many people really care how you are? Like,
sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, yeah, how you doing? And if I start telling you how I'm doing, guess what? They may come from a family of people who complain.
Yeah. And
they're like, well, damn, I look up to you. How you telling me how you give me something to help me out? I don't want to hear how you like your bad part. It's like we're not human anymore.
Is that why athletes have so much trouble with the transition out of the game? Is that it's suddenly they were operating at, 100 miles an hour and now they're at 50 miles an hour, or their identity was X and now that's gone. And now you've got to figure stuff out in a new way.
Yeah, man, listen, you have to you're forced to sit with yourself now.
Yeah.
Now, the tricky thing is, see, Ryan Holiday knows who he is. He was raised here. He did this. He evolved into this author, this speaker, this. You had time where it didn't rush you.
Yeah, sure.
Right? We were rushed in our development
as athletes,
and we just as athletes, you're rushed because we're actually. I tell this, and this is any and everyone. We're little kids in grown-up bodies playing adults. Yeah. Right. So just because I'm 30 years old and I'm rich doesn't mean I'm an adult.
Right.
Right. Like I'm a grown up. I could be still this insecure kid with a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
Right. So mentally I'm this kid, but I'm an adult. You look at me, oh my God, you're supposed to be a grown up and you're supposed to be an adult. Well, that's not really true. He didn't really work on himself.
Sure.
Right. She didn't really work on herself. She was just this pretty girl that was 21 years old and she's been pretty since she was younger. And all of a sudden she has so much attention. How many people learn when they win all the time?
Yeah, sure.
People learn when you lose.
Right.
Right. So, a lot of athletes, they don't really get to, I'm just saying athletes, right? I've never been a doctor or a lawyer or, those type of individuals who also has the God complex, right? Those as well, because I'm saving your life or I'm getting you out of this situation. We all have these God-like complexes, right? Like, so it's a part of us that we have to massage the ego because sometimes the ego does help you, but then at the end of the day, what is the purpose before the ego kind of thing? But, you know, a lot of guys don't get to sit with their original self because they don't really know it, right? Like
Yeah.
when you were a little boy, it was this. You little girl, it was this. And then now all of a sudden it's like AAU and then college and high school and then college and then NBA. And it's like, I'm invincible. I sprained my ankle and I'm back in a week. I did this and mom needs money here. Dad needs money here. And this person needs, and you're not really like dissecting the problem.
Well, it's like to be great at something, you're almost always going to be unbalanced because you're so all in on that thing. And you can only be unbalanced in something for so long before that starts to cause problems for you, or it causes weaknesses for you. Just like if you're too strong in one area, you're going to be weak in another area, and that's where you're going to get injured.
Mm-hmm. And you think about this, right? If you go on any athlete, parts of their body is weak in some point.
Yeah.
Basketball players, overdeveloped quads, weak hamstrings, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now we have tight hips. So your football players, flexibility, right? They play sports of basketball. You can go down the line, boxers. It doesn't matter. So if I train as a boxer, I might not be in condition as a basketball player. So if I'm a boxer and I go and play on the basketball court, one is skill set and how I'm going to dribble the ball and, hand-eye coordination. And then how am I breathing and how am I forming when I do. I say this to people. Can you swim? People say, oh, yeah, I can swim. Oh, you can? Okay. You can swim in what? A pool?
Yeah.
Deep in? Okay, but can you swim in the ocean? Can you swim in the ocean when it's rough? Right? Because it's different perspectives. Just like in life, there's so many different perspectives with people that go on. It's like me, again, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But that's why I read so much and I ask questions so much and I try my best to accept what the universe has given me. Because while I'm here on earth, I don't know what's going to happen after I'm gone or before I was here. But while I'm here, I'm trying to retain as much as possible just in case I come back. Right? Or something else. I got a little head start. That's how I think.
Well, R.C. Buford told me a story once that I think you would like about athletes. He was saying the Spurs had like an extra day in New York City. And so they took the whole team to the whole team and all their families to like the Natural History Museum, some museum or whatever. And so the athletes were carrying their kids around the museum all day. And he said the next day they had all these injuries. The guys were super sore and tight because although they're all in great shape, they weren't used to carrying kids like on their hips the way that their wives would usually do it.
Right.
And so these guys are like, fine-tuned specimens, but just the slightest bit outside their comfort zone, outside what they normally do. In this case, spending time with their families the way, a regular person would do on an afternoon in New York City. There were serious repercussions for that. I think about that all the time. You build this sort of delicate machine that lets you write or make money in your business or, play sports. But you're going to be fragile because of that in the way that maybe a more balanced or, regular person wouldn't be quite so fragile.
You make a great point. I love R. I love Buford. He's amazing.
Is he the best?
Yeah, he's the best, man. All of Greg Popovich, those guys, they learn from an amazing leader. He's unbelievable, man. I wish I would have been coached by him. But I had great coaches. I had Rick Adelman was an amazing coach. He was just more quiet.
Yes.
And I only had him 1 year, but I had Rudy Tomjanovich, who was an amazing mentor. But yeah, listen, it's like anything, man. Me personally playing boxing and then playing football and then playing basketball and playing tennis, there's different muscles in my body that hurts. Yeah. My daughter, she'll come crawl in my bed. And before you know it, she's like snuggled underneath me. And then now my neck is sore, right? And I'm trying to figure out why the rest of my body's like out of alignment. It's because, I got this little girl right here, taking up my space, something I'm not used to or whatever it is. So I totally agree and I get that, man.
No, I think about that with routine. I know you've talked about sort of routine and discipline and training, but one of the things like I found, so like I'm a super big routine guy. I got to write at the same time. I got to operate the day the same way. And then like the last 2 weeks, I had some travel. All my kids were sick. It was raining, so they didn't want to go outside on a walk in the morning. All of a sudden, my routine, it wasn't just like, hey, I wasn't quite sticking with the routine. It was blown apart for 14, 15 days in a row. And it's taken me a while to recover from that, which I understand that's happens. But I'm also, what I take from that isn't just like, hey, the routine is important, but also if your success at what you do requires conditions to be an exact way, exactly as you want them, you're vulnerable, and that's not a good place to be either, right? Routine can't come at the expense of resiliency, right? Like if you're the person, you got to do it in this order. Like you saw the Giannis thing where he was trying to shoot those free throws after the game and they wouldn't let him. And he's he's having trouble because it almost becomes an addiction. You're like, it's like an OCD thing. You're like, I have to do it this way. And if I don't do it this way, it feels like the world could end. And that's like a really fragile place to be.
So let me tell you this story. Kobe and Bryant and I grew up together. 4 years older than him. Alvin Williams, Rasheed, Wallace. It's the Malcolm Gladwell theory, right?
Yeah.
We have so many pros around each other. We don't even know we're pros. We just want to be the best version of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So, people, when Kobe was playing, for so many years, it was like, oh, he's this, and he doesn't like his teammates. He doesn't have friends, this, that, whatever, and he's in the gym so much, and blah, blah, blah. I understood him. I understand him. The crazy thing about that is that I was like that for a period of time where I was exceeding. Okay? I was getting to, and if things were out of place, you would feel it from me.
Yeah.
Because I wanted everything to be in place, because there's a very small window to be great at something, right? And especially when that something requires not so much time as it does age. See, because you can't be great at basketball at 40.
Sure.
You have to be great from like that. If you're in the pros, from like that 18 to that 35, and then you're tilting away. So that's a very short window compared to your life, and hopefully you're blessed to live to you're 80-something years old. So people saw Kobe as like this, and then you see Redeem Team, and he comes in and everybody else goes to party, and Kobe's going to his regiment, and he's like, everybody's like, well, I cannot believe you're going at 4 a.m. And Kobe didn't argue with anybody. He's like, this is what I do. This is who I am. Like I can't go. And when I get like that, I zone out, because I know what's on the other side negatively, and I know what's ahead of me success-wise. This is how I get to this point. So, I always tell me, listen, you have to it's like a method actor.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you want to become that, you have to really lose yourself.
Yeah.
And people have to understand it, right? Because it's not for everybody.
Yeah, or it's like an astronaut, right? Like you leave and you go, you sort of clear the atmosphere, you're out in space, and it's great, you're doing what you do, but it's the reentry. You can burn up on reentry. You know what I mean? To go back to and now you got to have breakfast with your family, or now you got to stand in line at the DMV or whatever it is, right? Like when you go from this very sort of specialized, controlled environment where you get to do what you do and cause and effect is very clear and you have a lot of control. And then you enter an environment like you did, where suddenly the doctor says, hey man, sorry, I don't care how good you are at basketball. It's over. And now you got to adjust. That's where life gets you.
Yeah. And that adjustment is like so foreign to you, right? So then that astronaut that is in space, he's either with one other person. I don't know if he's by himself, and now you come home to chaos.
Yeah.
It's like the basketball player, right? Your chaos is actually comfortable with your peers because you've been doing that with them since you were 12.
Yeah.
Now you have like a child, and then you have a wife or the girlfriend, it's mom and dad are hanging around, and brothers and sisters, and they and not saying everybody, but it's like, they're just waiting for you to make their life better. And it's like now all these other teammates, everybody's in the gym together, working out hard, right? The coach is on your butt. So there's a lieutenant, there's a colonel, there's people that's there. It's like, yo, listen, and then you get home, it's like everybody's like, well, it's just a different world that you're in.
When it's not that it's not as rewarding, but it's not as it's not as celebrated, right? Like the crowd doesn't cheer when you load the dishwasher, right? Or when you just do your job, right? My wife sometimes says to me, like, when and I've gotten better at it, but you come home, you've been on the road or whatever, you've done your thing, you're in a very sort of focused work mode. That's what you're thinking about. You come home and my wife would go like, life didn't stop while you were gone. Like, shit happened while you were gone. We're in the middle of all of that. Like, we weren't waiting around for you to come home. Like, her point was, you got to figure out how to reintegrate yourself into this system. The system doesn't reorient itself around you.
Right. And I go through that now. I'm a single dad.
Yeah.
So it's 50-50. So, there's this weekend I was myself.
Yeah.
And then my kids came back today tomorrow. I don't have a Wednesday, Thursday, then I have to get on a weekend. Yeah. So I have to reboot my mind. And I've been really good at that. After my 4th year in the NBA, I said, you know what? I'm not going to be an asshole, right? I'm going to take life as it is. Yeah. And when I'm in the gym, I'm in the gym. And when I'm home, I'm at home. And when I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, I'm really committing to what it is. And I say this, listen, if I go into the, and it's kind of like in the same kind of context, when I go into the airport, right, I'm not going to go in like everybody else is frustrated, anxiety, and angry.
Yeah.
Right. I know what I'm getting into. So when I'm going home to my children, I'm coming happy with hugs and kisses and what should I do? And I'm not just so selfish and oblivious to like taking out the trash and, the dishes. And like, we have to practice these things. Yes. Right. And it's okay for your wife or someone to say to us, listen, I understand that you do for us, and it's amazing what you do, and people admire you and want all your ideas and blah, 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 blah. But take the goddamn trash out. So your kids can see that it's okay to do this too, right? We're all doing a job.
Well, so someone once told me that the job of a leader is to make fast transitions, right? You're talking to this person, this is what they need. Then you're talking to this person over here, totally different, totally different kind of person. So you got to transition, just like in basketball, you got to transition from offense to defense, practice to games, travel to whatever. And I think as a parent, that's the key too, is transitioning between, work you and at home dude, husband you and parent you, fun you, serious you. You got to be able to transition quickly between all the different roles that you have as a parent, as a professional, and as a human being.
So I love what you were saying, that you get up in the morning before your routine was broken with the kids and everybody being sick, you would take the kids for a walk.
Yeah.
So we would do that all the time. And then my daughter and I would ride bikes every day. We could, every single day. And I would play Pandora, whether it was Hall & Oates or Lionel Richie Station. It was beautiful, right?
Sure.
So that's one of her memories. So now that we moved into this new neighborhood where you can literally walk everywhere, it was windy last week. So my kids have more allergies and headaches and everything. So now hopefully it's calmed down a little bit. It's probably go back up, but we're going to get back into our routine of like, just let's go take a walk. You don't even have to speak. Let's just take a walk. Those routines for me help set my days and set theirs as well. But we have a routine when we get in the car also when it's going to school. So it's no phones.
Yeah.
It's classical music. And sometimes it's just quietness for us.
For me, I feel like walking is the most magical thing. Like when my kids are being crazy, if stuff isn't working, it's like, you know what, we're going for a walk. And it was easier when they were younger, like you strap them into a thing and they can't resist. But then when they're crazy, I'm like, just don't, we're going outside. You're going to get this shit outside instead of on each other or on the furniture or whatever. We're going to go for a walk. And I haven't found, I would say almost every problem in life is made better by taking a walk. right? You're in an argument, you're feeling sad about something, you're nervous about something, your kids are going crazy, you're whatever it is, you take a walk, and I think it'll turn the volume down on that problem just a little bit.
For sure. And listen, I went early this morning. I went to the sauna.
Yeah.
And I do a ritual sauna every single morning. I'm getting back into lifting. Took about 45 days off. And just, I've been working out since I was a kid. Sometimes just like I need to like take off or whatever it is. But, the sauna always helps me because one, there's no phone.
Yes.
I'll bring a book in there. So like I've read your book, Discipline is Destiny in the sauna, right? So I'm outlining the book and I'm doing things like that. And then, I get better work done when I'm jogging, sauna, or walking. And it's the working out part for me. And I think that's just, it clears my brain, so I can attack the day not so much attack the day, but just I'm calmer with what comes with the day.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you're not starting the day on your back foot. You're not like, you're going into the day from the right frame of mind, the right sort of equanimity and poise. You've just got a handle on yourself at least before, I tell this story in Discipline is Destiny, Toni Morrison, she wanted to write every morning before she heard the word mom. And you think about it's like as soon as your kids are on you, you're already, behind, right? They're like, I need this, I need that. What about this? What about that? And so if you can have some space or time in the morning where you think or you journal or you go in the sauna or you work out or whatever it is, then you're not feeling like you're behind or that you're playing catch up all day.
Yeah, that overwhelmed feeling. When you're feeling overwhelmed, man, it's definitely, I'm good at that because I've practiced since a younger age. Maybe it's basketball, maybe it's football, maybe it's being in the ring, whatever it is. But I'm good at being comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Sure.
And knowing how to settle my brain, right? Down to a certain amount of seconds left. I have the ball, like my breathing and what will happen. And, but I prep myself. I'm shooting thousands of shots before that happens, right? I'm putting my mind in that space before it happens so I can, I'm tuning the crowd out. Like I think practicing those things before it happens, opposed to just smacking you in the face, kind of helps you, especially when you're a parent like yourself and myself, it helps your children react to issues and help them become sharper critical thinkers when situations happen in their lives.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's a good point. Like as adults who've been around a long time, we have a lot more experience than they do. And that was something that I've tried to remind myself the last couple of crazy years, especially with the pandemic, is like, they're having a hard time and they don't know they're having a hard time. Like they don't know that this is crazy and stressing them out and weird. All they know is that they want something and they can't have it. And that's why they're throwing a temper tantrum. And so if you as a parent are focused on the, hey, that's not how we ask for things, what you're missing is that they haven't trained or been subjected to or have the familiarity with stressful situations that you have from a lifetime of practicing for this exact moment.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you said that. My daughter, she would see her mom do a lot of like carrying a whole bunch of bags and huffing and puffing and doing all that stuff. And I explained to her, and my son, he was sitting in the front seat. He's 12 years old, and she was in the back. She's 9 now. And he was like, listen, don't do that. Just ask for help. You cannot just keep walking around huffing and puffing and bringing this. So I explained to him, like, yo, listen, I said, he's right. I said, no one wants a martyr. No one wants somebody that's like passive aggressive. There's only 2 words they can, if you ask them, there's only 2 words they can give you. Yes or no. That's it.
Yeah.
And you got to take both of them the same way, right? It's as simple as, but if you ask, guess what? 9 times out of 10, they'll help you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just about like teaching them. And then he's understanding it because he's seeing body language from other adults. He's like, nah, I don't want to Yo, Dad, listen, can you help me do this? Yes. Dad, can I go here? No. Okay, cool. Like, it's just it's like simplify life. You don't have to make it as hard and hope people read your mind and, all these different things. So she knows she's getting it. She's 9 years old and she's getting it where she's like, Dad, help me with my bags. Or, can you go do this for me? And can you do that? And like, I appreciate that because you're learning how to communicate now.
Yes.
Right? And I don't think people, adults, they just don't know how to really communicate. Just say it. Say it and live with it after you say it.
I'm so glad you said that because I think people wrongly think that Stoicism is about this sort of invulnerability, this toughness, this fortitude and strength. And it is about those things. But one of my favorite passages from Meditations, Marcus Aurelius says, we're like soldiers storming a wall. If you have to ask, if you slip and you have to ask a comrade for help, he says, so what? Right? Like, so what? That's what comrades are there for. And I imagine as a basketball player, you learn it's like, hey, if you need help, right? Or if another player needs help, communicating this is actually making you both better. Like that's what that's why it's not one-on-one basketball. That's why there's 5 guys on each team is so they can help each other. But I think, because we are afraid to ask for help or look vulnerable, even if it's, the cliche about asking for directions or asking where something is in the store, what we're actually teaching our children is that there is something wrong about holding up your hand and asking your comrade for help, that it's not a so what. There's actually something weak or shameful about having someone help you with your bags.
Yeah. And I think, like I said earlier on, me being a captain of every team, I always asked for help, and I always wanted, ask me for help because if we're together,
yeah,
I don't want to do this by myself. You know what I mean? Like,
and I don't want you to do it by yourself.
Exactly, exactly. And so I've learned that in my younger years, I guess, playing the sport and trusting that my peers, my coaches, my teammates, they're going to help me become my best. So I tell my kids this: I work for you. So guess what? You have to work for me, right? Like, you got 2 jobs, right?
Yeah.
Do well in school and be a kid. That's it. That's all. That's all I want you to do. Be a good person. Do well in school, right? Be a kid. That's it. I'll do the rest. That's
beautiful. And like there are these moments where your kid is really struggling with something or has some huge problem, and they don't ask for help. And they don't ask for help because you have at some point shown them that you are not a resource or that they can't ask you for help. And that can have tragic consequences. So it's why I think as a parent, you have to be really focused on modeling this stuff. And when the request comes in, right, actually being open to it, not being busy or tired or frustrated or you already asked me that before. Because if you're not available for help on the little things, they're not going to come to you for help on the big things.
Yeah, it was something was said about that. If I can't trust you with a small, like a small problem,
yeah, it's
kind of hard to when it comes to big something. I forget. I wrote it down, but it was something to the effect of that. But again, too, if for just me being a single dad, it's like so much, just like a single mom, right?
Yeah.
Or even when you're married, there's still a lot of stuff that goes on. Even when you're sharing, the house and the life together and all those things. But I learned at a younger age. I was very aware of how my mom. Listen, I had amazing parents. My stepfather and my father both loved me to death. My mom, my stepmom loved me to death. But I had a mother. My mother had me when she was 19. So I had a young mother. So, her goals and her, desires and things she wanted to accomplish, was kind of, she showed it, right? Because if there's frustration, there's anxiety, it's this. And then when my stepfather came along, he was more of a stoic individual. He was reading books and he was tying ties. I'm going to show you how to tie a tie and polish his shoes. And this is how we save money. And this is how we do this. And he was he's older, way older than my mom. So of course, right, he's teaching her certain things as well. And she was more of the chaotic one because she was younger. So now I'm in my 20s, my mom's in her 40s. I'm in the pros, and she's just getting herself together as a person, right? So she,
Right.
She was the first one to graduate from college, Temple. And I was the first grandchild that graduated from college. So we had that in common as well. And we're both like fighters, we're both fighters. But I think a lot of my personality came from my dad's laid back. And then my stepfather was more of a reader, and he just wanted all the information he could get, kind of thing. So yeah, man, I was mixed with, but I learned from my mother more so than my stepfather of what not to do when my kids are like, because she was younger. She wanted to think, she wanted to accomplish things, school and work and this and that. So my kids said, yo, Dad, can you go do this? Or, can we do that? I'm like, yeah, come on, let's go. Okay, come on, I'll go with you. Okay, even if I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've learned to be able to do those things. But then also too, as I taught them, like, listen, when I'm doing something, it's not because I don't want to be with you. I got to get this done, and then I'm coming, and let's go do what we got to do, kind of thing.
Yeah. How have you thought, as I think this is a common problem that really disciplined, driven, talented people have, how do you both expect and help your kid realize their potential without being way too hard on them? You know what I mean? Like Marcus Aurelius has this great line where he says, tolerant with others, strict with yourself. I think a lot of driven, talented people struggle with that with their kids.
Yeah. So, it's a lot to do with your mate. I think because when you have like husband, wife, whatever it is, the dynamic, one may be soft, the other one may be driven, whatever it is, right? So
yeah, there's a balance there.
So I see that when you're pushing the child to do X, Y, Z, now their intentions, right? There's the book Mind of the Soul talks about intentions also. But I see that in intentions, some people are living vicariously through their child.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, listen, these are just life lessons. You don't really have to play, but you have to finish. You have to go hard and you have to finish. Right. So it's a very tricky thing. So me being a single dad, or my son or my daughter comes over here, there's certain things that we have to do, or whether it's reading or whether it's this or whether it's, let's get our shots up, or, it's like, I can show you certain things. And after a while, you are who you are. So then you start to choose who you want to become. Right.
Yeah.
And then my job over here is to put you in that world of who I think you want to become, right? So I told my son, who's 12 years old, Sierra Canyon's right down the street, and LeBron James' son, both his sons, Bryce and Bronny, plays. I'm like, yo, go look at the schedule, because the head coach is my guy. I'm like, look at the schedule so we can go to some games.
Yeah.
We're going to train for basketball. We're going to make 200 shots, and then we're done today. And then the tutor's going to come tomorrow. And like, I'm just letting you know, this is because after a while, Ryan, this is the thing. Kids love structure, regardless if they fight it or not. The older they get, the more it feels like, whew, yeah, okay. I learned this from mom and dad, or I learned this from this mentor, that I can do boom, 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 and boom. And then the result will be this. Mm-hmm. If you don't have it at a very young age, life is like so chaotic, right? Like you just don't know how to calm the brain down, right? So that's where the discipline is destiny. So you have to like learn how to be disciplined at some point in time, right? Like people are like, oh, well, that's a baby. And it's like, well, the baby's going to be 2, then he's going to be 3, and there's going to be 4. So what do you want the baby to practice? You want to practice like being like a baby and wait until they're 2. The people say, oh, it's terrible 2s. What are terrible 2s? Because you didn't train them at 1 to do X, Y, and Z. So then that's when 2 become 3s and 3s become 4s. It's like, oh my God, he's just a terror. Now he's 5 because you were lazy and you didn't give him structure. Like,
Right.
it's just like anything. If you tell somebody that have never worked out before, listen, we get in the gym every day, 5 days a week this week, and you got to change your diet. They're going to be so upset. They don't want to eat these foods. They don't want to be in the gym. After the first couple of days, they can't move. That's the same thing a baby does. A human being is going to fight you when something's new. But if you structure if you give them structure and discipline, after a while, it's like they're going to see results and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to stick to this. This is what I'm going to do. So
yeah, I was reading about, and you probably know, but I was reading about Tim Hardaway Jr. and his father, Tim Sr. And the struggle they had with each other is, it sounds like, again, to be driven and great at something, often you can be really hard on yourself, right? You have that voice inside you, the one we're talking about with a Kobe or whomever, that says like, man, if you don't hit 100 shots, like, you suck, right? Or if you don't do this, if you're not putting in the work, you're going to fall off. They're going to that sort of voice of paranoia and ambition and drive that can make you really good at what you do. As long as it's an interior voice, the only person you're hurting is yourself. The problem is now all of a sudden there is a much younger, much more vulnerable person who looks at you as the most important person in the world, and now they're hearing that voice. And that can be devastating.
No, it definitely can. But also, too, is you got to put them in that experience, right? So if it's the room's not clean, or you play the game and you don't shoot well, then you ask the very common questions. Did you work out this week? Did you make a shot every day? And then we can unpack it from there. Because if you made 200, 300 shots a day for the past week and you had a bad shooting day, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because then I can show you an example of Kobe or Ray Allen or this person who really are dedicated to the gym. You're not going to take it from me, even though I do it. But I'm going to show you what they did. And then Kobe shot 6 for 25. And Ray shot, from 3 for 14. It's like, but they in the gym every single day. Giannis was 4 for 15 against the Sixers, but he still works out every single day. These days will happen, but they're going to happen less if you do that than if you do this. So how you feel right now, I want you to feel that. Now what do we do from that? Right? So it's hard because they can't see the future and something that you already seen. It's like, I want to be smart. Okay, you want to be smart, but you don't read no books, you don't travel. Sorry, I don't know what's going to happen.
But it's like you're going to be the voice in your kid's head, right? And so that means you get to choose what that voice is going to sound like to them. And I think there's plenty of people that have the voice of their father or their mother or their grandfather or some teenager or some teacher in their head, and it is not a nice voice, and it haunts them.
No, it's not, man. Listen, I don't. It's very hard to, because like I said before, right? We're little kids, growing up bodies, playing adults.
Yeah.
A lot of people have failed themselves. Not everybody else, but themselves. But then they have an extension of themselves, whether it's their children or whoever it is. And then they're trying to they mean to give the message in the most calm, positive way.
Yes.
But they're actually speaking to their younger self.
Yeah.
But to another individual on the outside, like, I just told you to do this. And it's like, that's who you wanted to talk to when you were younger.
Yeah.
But you missed the moment.
Yes.
Right? So now you're reflecting, and then you feel guilt from yourself and failure from yourself. So then now you're speaking to them about this. Right? So, I mean, it's a lot of that to me, where those people, when they speak out, because think about it, right? People say, oh, when this person did something to you, what? It's not personal. It's more so them. So when I'm yelling and I'm going crazy like that, right? Like, speaking in general, they're really mad at themselves because they see something that they don't want in the other person. Mm-hmm. This is what I think.
No, I think that's right. There's a line that I heard from Bruce Springsteen. I think it was on his Broadway show. He was saying that you can be an ancestor to your children or a ghost. Which is it going to be? You right? Are you this thing that guides them, that supports them, that inspires them? Or are you going to be this thing that haunts and terrorizes them, that's a curse? And I think as parents, But also as coaches or, any role that we have in other people's lives, that's the question you got to ask. Well, am I being a ghost or an ancestor? What legacy am I leaving to them? Is it a positive one, or is it going to be a burden, a trauma that they're carrying with them?
Right. And you bring up a really good point. So for me, is I'm not trying to get it all at once. And I say this to all your listeners, my listeners, don't try to get it all at once. Like,
Yes.
Work on yourself as much as possible, but be aware, right? My mind can't be in the first quarter if I'm already in the third quarter. My mind has to be in the third quarter. And saying that, work on being your best version, reading, traveling, understanding, listening. I think that's a skill. Being able to listen is a skill. Being able to communicate is a skill, right? And then listening comes with, like, shedding your ego. Communicating comes with understanding your ego and your purpose, right? We all have a lot of work to do. So for myself, Cuttino, I try to fill myself with as much as I can on an everyday basis, not rushing it, but just where my children and the people that are surrounded around me saying, okay, I find peace around this individual, right? And I'd rather be, like you said, like the ancestor opposed to the ghost. So when they're thinking about me years from now, it's like, wow, I feel really good about this individual.
Well, and I think you make a good point there, which is this little thing, it's that they didn't hustle back on defense, or they blew this math test, or, they didn't clean their room, or whatever it is. Yeah, it matters. And it matters as a person who takes everything that you do seriously. But the problem is, I think, when you get in this trap where you make each individual thing more than it is, right? You're extrapolating out, hey, if you always do this, you're going to end up very far from where I want you to be, where you want you to be, where you want to be. But you're not talking about something they're doing always. You're talking about something they did one time. They made a mistake. Just as you have to be able to have that dialogue with yourself. You're on this diet and you eat, you go crazy at a restaurant or whatever. You can't whip yourself like you're some piece of shit because you did it once. You didn't do it always. You did it once, right? And I think the ability to be kind to yourself, to be a friend or a parent or an ancestor, whatever the word we want to use, to be that's super key to being able to do this thing sustainably and not burning yourself or other people out in the process.
So you brought up something. You said being kind to yourself, and I always speak about that to people. Like, love yourself, be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself. And because I loved basketball so much and I picked the ball up at 13 years old, I had a lot of catching up to do, right? So there's Alvin Williams, there's Kobe, there's Rasheed, Wallace, Aaron McKee, Eddie Jones, all these guys that I'm playing a sport that they started when they were 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So I want to be so good so fast. And I had to understand that it's a process to this. But at that time, I was very like, you know what I mean? Like I wanted it right now, and I want to work out every day, and I want to work 4 times a day just so I can get faster and those things. And so I was very irritated.
Yeah.
Then I got to college, and I studied a lot more, and just on myself, and I read a lot more, and I really understood a lot more. But I was still that intense individual.
Yes.
Right. And it came from a really good place because, like I said before, I'm not really when I'm playing, I'm intense, right? I have different personalities, so I'm intense when I'm playing. But the older I got, I knew how to separate it from everything else, right? So in going through life, I'll jump on my son, my 12-year-old, or I'll jump on my daughter or my 22-year-old son. I'll jump on them, but then also too is I help them understand that. Why we did this, why you did this. And this is, I'll show you examples of, whatever you done wrong or whatever it is. Right. But if you didn't, wash the dishes, or you got an F or you got a D, it's like, listen, that's okay. There's a consequence to that now. Right. This is what it's going to have to do. Right. So I'm going to ask you once or twice. And then after that, there's a consequence. If you do this, you can't play basketball. If you do this, you can't do this. You can't, right? You don't, it's dealing with children is harder than when it is an adult because children can't see the future of themselves, right? Because we all repeat so many different things, right? There's going to be another Jason Williams. There's going to be another Mike Bibby. There's going to be another Chris Webber. There's going to be another Cuttino. There's going to be another, but we can't see it, right? There's going to be another LeBron James. There was Magic Johnson, then there was LeBron James. There's going to be another one that's better than that. Who will we be alive? I don't know, but it's going to be another one that comes out. So they don't know that, and it I guess the more I work on my patients and how to articulate and help them, I think it becomes a better playing field when they're out there in the world, right? So if we play ball together, really quick, the kid's godfather, Sicilian from San Francisco, love him to death, is my brother's name is Johnny Novello. Never played basketball. Well, played when he was a little kid, but, he's in his 40s, he's 47, 48 years old, right? Same age as me. And we're playing the rec league, right? So we have a game actually on Wednesday. So we're playing the rec league, and, he doesn't practice basketball. He doesn't play basketball. He's just a hustler. He plays soccer. He's a guy who plays every sport, but he doesn't play basketball at all. So, and this is now, it's kind of like the same thing with life.
Yeah.
Because I'm so good at basketball, I can take 4 guys and make the game exciting, no stress.
Yeah.
Right? I can put you in places. I can tell you what to do on this, and you can start to see the game better. It's the same thing, right? Because he was like, yo, listen, he said every time, he's like, yo, you make the game so much easier, so much more fun when it's chaotic.
Yeah.
And then when the situations happen where you're down 3 or up 5 or this, that, whatever, you make it better for me. And I think as parents, as leaders, as mentors, the better we practice ourselves, the better we can make the game better for everybody else in life.
No, that's so beautifully said, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't actually control our kids. We have control over them, but we don't control them. And if you want your kid to be something, whether it's patient or ask for help or kind or generous or, disciplined or whatever that is, your best bet is almost always going to be just to work on that thing yourself, model it, demonstrate it, and try to help them get there, as opposed to try to force them to get there. Right. Because even if you succeed, it's not going to stay, because it's not there authentically. It's there by force. Right.
Exactly. So that's what I've learned. Right. And I was going back to my mom when she was younger, and she was impatient and this, that, whatever. So a lot of what I kind of taught myself and really understood myself was, okay, listen, to become really good at that, free throws, you got to shoot them, right? To become really at this, when your daughter, your son, or your other sons with this, you have to do this and you have to do that. And I'm like, yeah, man, work on you. Just work on you, and just trust it, and it'll all work out.
It's beautiful, man. Well, look, I'm so glad we got connected, and I love your stuff, and this was really cool for me.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
All right, here, let me hit stop and let's make sure it uploads.